Hey, I'm Jacob, the creator of the AI Vaults newsletter. Every week I hand the mic over to Google's Notebook LM to let AI break down the latest issue. So here's this week's news presented by Alex and Morgan.
Let's start today with a little scenario. Imagine you hire a new executive for your company, right?
Okay.
And they are incredibly fast. Like they can read 1 million pages a minute and they literally never sleep.
Sounds like the perfect hire, honestly.
Right. But then on their very first day, they accidentally delete your entire customer database.
Oh, wow. Yikes.
Yeah. And they do it just because they didn't understand why a certain folder was important. So now you have a choice. Do you fire that executive, or do you fire your entire team of veteran employees, the ones who actually know how the company runs, just so you can afford to keep paying this new chaotic executive?
Well, I mean, you would think the answer to that is pretty obvious.
Exactly.
Yeah?
You would think so. And yet, when we look at the landscape of artificial intelligence right now, in March of 2026, companies are aggressively choosing the latter.
They really are. So, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack what industry insiders are currently calling the accountability gap. We are moving way past the glossy marketing hype and looking at what actually happens when AI violently collides with the real-world workforce, corporate infrastructure, and even the geopolitical stage.
Yeah, because it is a really messy reality out there right now. We have a pretty robust stack of sources to synthesize for you today.
Thank you.
We're pulling from ground-level data in the Open Tools Tech Layoff reports, some great market analysis from TechCrunch, government tech policy updates from FedScoop, insights from the AI Vaults newsletter, and this is the wild part, some incredibly tense federal court filings that were actually just unsealed.
Which we will definitely get to.
Right. And our goal here is to look at the underlying mechanics of all these events, to understand the structural shifts happening right beneath the headlines. Okay, let's unpack this, because if you are a learner listening to this and you want to stay well-informed without drowning in the daily flood of tech news, today's dive is going to provide some massive aha moments for you.
Absolutely.
And we really have to start with the human cost here, because the sheer scale of what happened just last month is honestly hard to process. Like in March 2026 alone, the tech sector saw 45,000 layoffs.
Which is staggering.
It's massive, and the data explicitly points to AI and automation efficiencies as the primary driver for those cuts.
Yeah, and I think we need to define what efficiency actually means in this context, because that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting right now.
Right. What do they mean by it?
Well, this isn't your standard economic downturn, right, where companies are just trimming around the edges because revenue is down. What we are seeing is a really profound structural pivot. Companies are making a deliberate mathematical choice to prioritize leaner operations over human manpower. I mean, they're permanently altering their organizational DNA to make room for compute power.
And the specifics on who is making these cuts are super revealing. Over 52% of these cuts, so we were talking about 30,000 jobs, came from Amazon alone.
Just from Amazon.
Yeah. And they explicitly cited flattening management and bolstering their AI infrastructure. And then you look at Atlassian, the company behind those massive enterprise tools like Jira and Trello.
Right. Everyone uses them.
Exactly. They just slashed 10% of their workforce, which is about 1,600 people. And they publicly stated they are doing this to self-fund further investments in AI.
Even though their stock has dropped, what, like 84%?
Yes, down 84% from its 2021 peak. So, I mean, if a company is bleeding market value that severely, why on earth are they gutting their core product teams to buy more AI?
Because of how capital markets are currently incentivizing corporate behavior.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, Wall Street is effectively punishing legacy software companies that do not have a dominant AI narrative right now. The boardroom consensus is basically that doubling down on artificial intelligence is the only viable path to long-term survival.
So it's like a panic pivot.
Exactly. And if your stock is down 84%, you can't easily raise new capital or, issue new shares to buy those massive server clusters and the GPUs required to run these models. So human payroll basically becomes the easiest, most immediate lever you can pull to finance that transition.
Wow. But who exactly are they letting go? Because the data shows 80% of these global cuts hit the U.S. workforce. And it is not just entry-level tasks being automated away anymore.
No, not at all.
We're seeing major cuts in mid-level roles, like software development, complex customer support, financial modeling. Microsoft even laid off people in senior AI roles.
Which is wild.
That is the part that trips me up. If you are pivoting your entire company to AI, why are you firing your senior AI personnel? It's like firing the ship's captain right after you install a brand new navigation system. Like, is the AI actually ready to take the wheel completely unsupervised?
Well, and that is the core tension of the accountability gap we're talking about today. To understand why companies are taking this massive risk, we have to look at how these systems actually function under the hood.
Right.
Large language models, or LLMs, are incredibly good at pattern recognition. They can generate predictive outputs based on vast amounts of training data, but they completely lack experiential judgment.
They don't have that real-world intuition.
Exactly. And actually, the AI Vaults newsletter recently suggested a brilliant exercise for you, the listener, to try. It's called a layoff-proof skills audit.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
How does it work?
You basically take your own job description and rigorously separate the tasks that are purely data-driven from the tasks that require nuanced human judgment, or empathy, or complex physical world interaction.
Okay.
The former is a target for automation, but the latter, that human element, that is your protective moat.
Right. Though I do want to push back on that moat a little bit.
Right.
Because we just saw exactly what happens when a massive company misjudges how deep that moat really is.
Oh, you're talking about the Amazon issue.
I am. We just talked about Amazon cutting 30,000 humans for AI efficiency. But that exact operational transition just hit a massive, incredibly expensive brick wall.
Yeah, the Amazon Q incident. It is arguably the most perfect case study of the accountability gap we have seen to date.
Right. So Amazon rolled out this internal AI coding assistant called Q, and the goal was to speed up their software engineering across the board.
Makes sense on paper.
Totally. But recently, they had to declare an emergency 90-day code safety reset. And this was not just a minor patch. They had to halt and review 335 critical systems.
335 systems. That is a massive operational freeze.
Huge. And why? Because the AI-generated code that caused cascading software failures. It disrupted their core e-commerce platform and cost them millions of dollars in lost, delayed, or just completely corrupted customer orders.
Yeah, and to understand why Q failed so spectacularly, we really have to look at the underlying mechanism of enterprise software.
Unpack that for us.
Well, an AI coding assistant can write thousands of lines of syntactically perfect code in a matter of seconds. But modern enterprise infrastructure is not just about clean syntax.
Right.
It is a massive, highly fragile, interconnected ecosystem of legacy systems, weird workarounds, and undocumented business logic.
It's like hiring a speed reader who can memorize a billion-page library in a single day.
Right.
But if you ask them why the library was built on top of a swamp back in 1998, they have absolutely no idea. Like, they know the text, but they do not know the history of the building.
That is a perfect analogy. The AI just lacks that broader systemic understanding. It doesn't know why a certain database was structured a specific way 10 years ago by an engineer who has, long since left the company.
Yeah.
The AI just optimizes for the immediate prompt it is given. So if you ask it to make a checkout process 10% faster, it might rewrite an API endpoint to achieve that speed. But it's completely unaware that a warehouse logistics system 3 states away relies on that old endpoint just to print shipping labels.
But wait, isn't this just a classic version 1.0 bug? People said the exact same thing about early internet browsers crashing or the first smartphones dropping calls. Like, why shouldn't Amazon just accept the millions in losses today, knowing that Q 2.0 or Q 3.0 will eventually be flawless?
Well, because it is not just a bug, it is a fundamental architectural limitation of how current AI models process context.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, even with massive context windows, an AI cannot access institutional memory that was never actually written down. It can't read the unwritten rules of a corporate culture. And that leads to the real bottleneck here. Because to fix this disaster, Amazon didn't just tweak the algorithm.
Right, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, they instituted a new mandate requiring senior human engineers to manually sign off on all AI-assisted code changes.
Which is just wild irony. They fired 30,000 humans to rely on AI, but the AI lacked the context so badly that they had to bring human oversight right back to the very center of the workflow.
What's fascinating here is how it perfectly illustrates the current technological ceiling. Human oversight is currently the ultimate bottleneck.
Because the human has to check the AI's work.
Exactly. If a senior engineer has to spend 3 hours reviewing and untangling AI-generated code just to ensure it doesn't crash the retail site, You have effectively neutralized the speed and cost benefits you hoped to gain by deploying the AI in the first place.
Right. You're not saving any time.
The AI can write the code, sure, but it cannot assume the risk. The human effectively becomes a liability sponge, like the designated person who absorbs the blame if the machine makes a mistake.
A liability sponge. That is a great phrase. And risk is actually the perfect pivot point here. Because if the accountability gap is causing millions of dollars in lost shopping cart orders at Amazon, what happens when we scale that exact same gap up to national security?
Yeah, that's where things get genuinely scary.
Right. If an AI writes a piece of code, who decides if it can pull a trigger? That is the question driving the absolute explosion we are seeing right now between Anthropic and the Pentagon.
We are definitely moving from corporate logistics to the literal battlefield here. And the legal mechanics of this dispute are just unprecedented.
Okay, let me lay out the situation unfolding in the federal courts right now. The Pentagon recently designated Anthropic, which is the company behind the Claude AI model, as a supply chain risk.
And we should note that is a highly severe label.
Yes, for context, that is a designation usually reserved for foreign adversaries, like Huawei. It means federal agencies are essentially banned from touching the technology.
Right.
And the trigger for this was Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, explicitly refusing to allow Claude to be used for autonomous weapons systems and mass domestic surveillance. So in response to that refusal, the Trump administration ordered all federal agencies to immediately cease using Anthropic's technology.
And we really need to be crystal clear here for you listening. In this deep dive, we are absolutely not taking sides on this political clash.
None at all.
We are looking strictly at the mechanics and the implications of the dispute based on the source material.
Exactly. We are just reporting what's in the filings.
Okay.
So from Anthropic's legal perspective, they are enforcing ethical guardrails on a technology that they build. They are suing the government in federal court, arguing that punishing them for those safety boundaries is unlawful retaliation.
Right. And a First Amendment violation.
Yes. Their argument essentially is that the code and the safety tuning of the model constitute protected speech.
And then from the Pentagon's operational perspective, private contractors do not get to dictate the terms of lawful military and intelligence operations.
Right. It's about control.
Exactly. Their argument is rooted purely in operational security. Relying on a vendor who might abruptly pull the plug on critical national infrastructure just because of an internal corporate policy. To the military, that is an unacceptable risk.
And the fallout from this clash has been massive. Anthropic is warning the courts that they could lose hundreds of millions, possibly multiple billions, in revenue over this. Over 100 enterprise clients have already pulled back contracts. Because these are companies that do business with the federal government, and they simply cannot risk the contagion of using a blacklisted AI vendor.
Right. They can't afford the association.
Meanwhile, you have the Senate officially approving ChatGPT, Gemini, and Microsoft Copilot for staff use, while very deliberately leaving Claude off the approved list.
Which really highlights the concept of balkanization in tech. The tools you are allowed to use are increasingly dictated by geopolitical alignment rather than just raw performance.
So what does this all mean? Like, how does a private tech company, which is just trying to enforce its own policies, survive when its biggest potential customer, the U.S. government, blacklists them?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the defining moment for AI governance. I mean, it is forcing a legal answer to a question we have been avoiding for years. Who actually controls the application of synthetic intelligence? Look at the fact that Anthropic just launched the Anthropic Institute. They literally hired top economists and legal scholars to study the societal impacts of their own technology. It shows that the industry itself is actively struggling to reconcile its massive technological power with its civic responsibility.
Which perfectly sets up the most bizarre disconnect in the AI world today. Because while Anthropic is bleeding real billions of dollars in enterprise contracts over these real-world boundaries, we have other companies raising absolute fortunes based purely on the promise of avoiding these exact entanglements.
You're talking about Reflection AI.
I am. Let's talk about Reflection AI. This is a startup that just raised another $2 billion, pushing them to a staggering $20 billion valuation.
Yeah, and they are positioning themselves right in the middle of this geopolitical tension by leaning heavily into the concepts of open-weight models and sovereign AI.
I really need you to break those terms down because here is the wild part to me. Reflection AI hasn't even shipped a product yet.
Right.
Their highly touted code research agent, Asimov, is literally stuck on a wait list. So how on earth do they justify a $20 billion valuation?
To understand the valuation, you really have to understand the mechanics of what they are actually selling. Let's start with open-weight models.
Okay.
When you use something like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude, you are using a closed API. You send your data to their servers, their model processes it, and it sends the answer back.
Right.
You do not own the model. You cannot see how it makes decisions. And as we just saw with the Pentagon, they can literally shut off your access at any time.
Right. You are essentially just renting their brain.
Precisely. An open-weight model, on the other hand, means the company releases the core mathematical architecture, the actual weights that determine how the AI thinks. So developers can download it, modify it, and run it locally on their own servers.
Got it.
And this leads directly into the concept of sovereign AI.
Okay, so sovereign AI isn't a specific brand of AI. It's a strategy.
Exactly. Sovereign AI is the idea that nations, governments, and massive enterprises want full control of their own artificial intelligence. They want to physically own the servers. They want the data to never leave their country's borders.
Oh, I see.
They're watching the Anthropic Pentagon feud and thinking, we cannot be reliant on an API from a San Francisco tech company that might get shut off over a policy dispute.
So it's about independence.
Right. Reflection AI is betting heavily that the world will pay a massive premium for a powerful, Western-built open model that allows them to maintain total sovereignty.
I mean, I am still struggling to wrap my head around the economics of this, though. We just established that AI models are currently failing at basic legacy code at Amazon.
Right?
But investors are handing a startup $20 billion for a model nobody's even seen, while across the street, 45,000 real tech workers with actual tangible skills are losing their jobs today. Like, how does that math work?
Well, this raises an important question about market speculation versus physical reality. The sovereign AI market is very real. Analysts project it to be an $80 billion market by 2026.
Wow.
But that $80 billion is mostly physical infrastructure. It is countries buying graphics processing units, GPUs. They're laying fiber optic cables, building data centers. Right now, Reflection AI is selling a geopolitical thesis, not a tangible product.
It just feels like a massive misalignment of capital, especially when you look at what is happening simultaneously at NVIDIA's GTC event.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that is where the physical reality of AI is being hammered out. If you look at the reports from GTC, they aren't talking about waitlists or theoretical models. They are talking about the physical constraints of the technology.
Yeah, the power requirements alone are insane.
Exactly. They're talking about gigawatts of power infrastructure being physically built just to keep these data centers from melting down.
Yes, the contrast between the software speculation and the hardware reality is so vital here. At GTC, you have attendees on the show floor building actual functioning AI agents using the OpenClaw open source playbook.
Right.
You have companies like Synthesia rolling out highly practical updates, like turning PowerPoint presentations directly into multilingual, avatar-led videos. These are real tools doing real work today.
So on one hand, you have the theoretical geopolitical maneuvering of companies like Reflection AI, just riding the wave of the sovereign AI narrative.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have the grinding physical reality of laying cables, securing power grids, and deploying agents that are actually changing how work gets done. And as we saw with the massive layoffs at the top of the show, changing who does the work.
We are officially in the messy middle of the AI revolution. We have entirely moved past the honeymoon phase of treating these models as novelties or just, asking chatbots to write funny poems.
Exactly. The technology is now advanced enough to displace 45,000 workers in a single month. Yet, it is still flawed enough to crash Amazon's retail systems because it doesn't understand the history of a database.
Right.
And it is powerful enough to trigger unprecedented constitutional lawsuits between tech billionaires and the Department of Defense.
And for you, as a listener trying to navigate this landscape in your own career, the takeaway is pretty clear. Think about those Amazon engineers.
Yeah.
Right now, the most valuable skill you can cultivate isn't just executing raw, repetitive tasks. The AI can do that, or at least it will attempt to do it. The premium skill, that layoff-proof skill we discussed earlier, is having the deep systemic expertise required to supervise, verify, and correct the AI. It's about understanding the architecture of the problem better than the machine does.
Which leaves us with a fascinating thought to mull over, and it builds on everything we've just discussed about the accountability gap today. We talked about how companies are currently struggling with AI writing bad code, and the Pentagon struggling with AI vendor lock-in.
Right.
But what if the ultimate bottleneck to the AI revolution isn't computing power, or open-weight models, or even human oversight? What if the true ceiling is simply the insurance industry?
Wait, the insurance industry?
Think about it. If AI models fundamentally lack systemic understanding and they continuously create millions of dollars in liability like we saw at Amazon eventually, someone has to underwrite that financial risk.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Right. If the accountability gap remains unresolved, the ultimate deciders of AI's future won't be software engineers or politicians. It'll be insurance actuaries who look at the data and simply refuse to underwrite autonomous systems.
That is a wild thought.
The most advanced technology in human history could be completely halted, not by a lack of innovation, but by pure, boring financial math.
Honestly, you might be right.
Something to think about. Until next time, keep diving deep.